Hello and welcome to Board na Móna, Growise, Meet Me in the Garden. My name is Aoibhín Garrihy and today I'm joined by gardener Paraic Horkan, who's going to share his top tips on how we can make our garden thrive.
And my tips are very simple to follow. So watering is the key. So regular watering, particularly as we go through the summer, as plants come into flower and as they start to produce fruit, they're going to be using more water. So generally watering a couple of times a week. A good tip is to check the container. So lift the container. If you feel it light, it obviously needs watering. If it's quite heavy, hold off the watering for a couple of days. Second tip is regular feeding. And particularly for flowering and fruiting plants, you want to use a high potassium feed. So something like a tomato feed is ideal and can be used in hanging baskets and window boxes for any flowering or fruiting plants. And finally, deadheading. So trimming off those old flowers, because remember the function of any plant is to produce flower and seed. So if we take off the old flowers just as they're fading, that will encourage new blooms to continue to be produced, and it'll continue the flowering right through until early autumn. So for example, on this carnation, once the flower starts to go over, we simply just snip it off, and that encourages lots of new buds, and that'll continue the flowering period right through to early autumn. Another little tip for sustainability: if you're growing salads, so particularly lettuce, rather than cutting the whole head and, let's face it, probably dumping half of the lettuce plant, my tip is to trim the leaves. Just take what you need. So if you're thinking about a salad this evening, go out and just cut what's needed, using it fresh, and that plant will start to regrow again, and within 2 weeks you can trim it again. And the same applies with microgreens. They're planted here at the back. Again, the trimming actually encourages new growth, and the new growth is far tastier. So that's a nice little tip, and again that will encourage the salads to produce their foliage right through to the end of the summer. While talking sustainability, one of the easiest ways is to use the Go Greener compost. Now, I've used this in the hanging basket and also in the patio container. It's a fabulous compost. It's got 40% green recyclable waste material, which adds the nutrition to the compost, and it also has some peat as well, which gives it that lovely mixture and texture. A really good compost full of nutrition, and that's going to keep your plants blooming the whole summer long.
And you talk about the green waste that would otherwise end up in landfill.
In landfill, yes.
But we're using it as part of the compost, which is just fantastic.
Absolutely, and Board na Móna have one of the largest green waste recycling facilities here in Ireland.
You mentioned watering the plants, and I just want to go back to that very quickly. And if we're not talking about a basket, we're talking about a flower bed or one of those heavier pots, how do we check that we're not overwatering?
Well, during the summer, the plants, particularly when they start to flower, are going to use more watering. So when it's planted, you're watering maybe once a week, but as we go through the summer, the plants, as they produce new flowers, are going to use lots of water. So we increase the watering to several times a week. Again, you can do a gentle lift just to see. The weight of the container is probably the best way to judge it, or just by pressing on the compost as well, you'll be able to feel whether it's moist or whether it's quite dry. But do remember that as we get into June, July and August, regular watering is a key gardening tip.
And we're into the summer now, we're into June, and a lot of the planting will have been done, but for people who want to get their hands dirty, what's an easy way to do that at this stage?
Well, June is a great time to plant wildflowers in the garden, and wildflowers are not just beautiful, but they're very beneficial as well. They encourage, again, the bees, the butterflies and the pollinators back into our garden. And I think it's a great project to do with children in particular, because the seed is so large, it's easy to sow. It will germinate and flower this summer, and it's going to look beautiful, but yet be very beneficial for your garden.
It's also low maintenance, isn't it?
It's very low maintenance. You simply just cut the old stems, flower heads at the end of the summer, and lots of them will re-germinate and come back up next year again.
Sounds like a good option. Thanks,
Sure.
Corey. Board na Móna, Growise, Go Greener is available nationwide.